Welcome to SF Commercial Property Conversations with Bruce Bean, where Bay Area investments meet expert insights. Get ready to unlock the strategies of commercial real estate success.
Good day to all of you. This is a very exciting day for me because we get to talk with Luca Giaramidaro, if I said that correct. Is that even close, Luca?
It's very close. Good job.
All right. So Luca comes from Italy. He's in the urban and regional planning, works at Multistudio. And so we're going to talk a little bit about his course to getting here and how he got into urban and regional planning and what's happening in the Bay Area in that respect. So great to have you, Luca. Love to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Bruce. Very nice to be with you in this nice platform. I've been, listening to your podcast, and I find the conversation always interesting. Hopefully, I contributed to the interesting dialogue that you are encouraging here. So appreciate that. So, well, I'll start a little bit about myself. As you said, I'm Italian, as you can guess by my accent. I moved in San Francisco in 2008 straight from Rome. I'm a Sicilian originally, but as most of the kids from the south of Italy do, if they can, they would move to northern regions, for school, for finding more opportunities. And so that was my experience as well. In Rome, I did all of my school there, did a bachelor in architecture, a master in architecture, and I wrapped it up with a doctorate program in sustainable design. And through that program, I got to travel a little bit, which was a fun experience. I visited China. I went to Beijing Tsinghua University for a little bit, just a few months as a visiting researcher. I went to Turkey, and I visited Berkeley, San Francisco, and the region, not as a visiting researcher, but really just as a visitor. And that was quite an experience. And kind of organically through that experience, I got in contact with some of the folks at SOM, just for a friendly interview. Yes. And, one thing led to the other. I went back after my travel to Italy to make my dissertation. And with a good timing, I was 1 week from my interview, from my dissertation, and they called me back for another interview. So that very quickly became the beginning of experience in San Francisco. That was in 2008. And with SOM, I stayed about 5 years. I did primarily work in Asia, primarily China. There was a lot of traveling. I mean, I was a kind of younger designer. It was a great opportunity to really have an imprinting of urban design and planning the American way and the SOM way. And so I consider that was a tremendous experience. I call it tremendous school, because really it was a lot of learning, including English, honestly with you. And so it was a fantastic experience. But I felt that after 5 years of that, I needed to find opportunities to be more grounded into local work. And of course, I mean, SOM does that as well. It was just my experience. It was becoming more and more focused on international, and I felt was tremendous, but I felt I needed to fill a gap. And so I made my way to Perkinsonville, and worked there for about 10 years. Another great, tremendous experience. A few cycles of changes throughout those years. Yeah, and but it was fantastic. What that experience taught me was really to be connected to the local instances of the community and really integrate the local voices into the design process, so that it's not just checking a box, but it's really engagement is really the tool into how do we come to solutions that really can have their own legs to move forward in the future beyond the contract, right? Beyond our scope ends. I mean, for planning work, as you know, we're talking about decades, before we see anything happening quite often. So the ability to get a broader consensus and support is key to successful planning exercise. So that really is a remarkable experience that I got there, a good teaching that I had for that group. And then through that, we got very curious about transportation and transit integrated development. Transit-oriented development. We would like to say transit integrated to show even more tight relation between the transportation and urbanity. And with California high-speed rail at the time, we were chasing that. I got to lead some of those efforts as a lead designer in the early planning and the EIR efforts for Bakersfield.
Wow.
And then, we felt that there was a need of the authority, the California High-Speed Rail Authority needed folks that really understood what the right model for transit integrated development could look like when we talk about high-speed rail. And so we kind of took the initiative, and I was assigned, lucky me, to do a study trip back in Europe to visit all the high-speed rail stations. I mean, not all, but a bunch, half a dozen across Europe, and really understand what is the lesson learned, what is really key to determine success in Europe. But also come back to California with not just an attitude of translating exactly what is kind of replicating exactly what we have in Europe, because United States is not Europe, California is not Europe.
Right.
So understand the uniqueness of the urban context that we have in California, understanding the uniqueness of the culture. The relation with urbanity, with cars and bicycles, is quite different from Europe. And so acknowledging that different, yet pursuing this incremental effort of change was our take. And I think it was a successful story, because out of that, we started to win work. I mean, the research trip was a key aspect of positioning a new team into the realm of transportation and transit-oriented development. So with that, we won Sacramento Valley Station, and it was one of the projects that I loved the most. It's up in Sacramento, of course. It's about 33 acres. If you're familiar with Sacramento, is where the old depot is. And they realigned years ago the tracks, so that now the depot is quite far from the tracks and the platform.
Wow.
It's just like a brief walk, but if you're rushing to the train, it might be a little bit of a challenge. And plus, on top of that, the land is just available, it's undeveloped. And so the idea was how to rethink a new station and how to develop around that station an efficient and engaging new piece of town. And so we partnered with Grimshaw. They were leading the architecture, and we were coming from urban design, and we got a great result of that. Worked in Texas for Texas High-Speed Rail, which sometimes it feels like it's dead, and sometimes comes back. It seems like it's moving forward. These are big investment and require a lot of efforts, and also transit-oriented developments and corridor study that really put an emphasis on community and the resilience of the social and economic environment that this infrastructure want to serve. So work for VTA for the extension of BART in Santa Clara County, and really understanding along the corridor, the 4 station. We were working at looking at 3 stations, but the corridor is 4 new stations, and really understand what is the development capacity. We were like dealing with 900 parcels, and kind of to understand what is the growth, what is and how should the growth happen? How can we retain the local businesses, and really encourage diversity and affordability as we see this development happening, hopefully capitalizing on the infrastructure, but in a way that is equitable and in a way that is inclusive. That's what I call it, resilient, right? So this was a great experience, but through phases and personal needs and also aspiration of doing more and different, it became more clear to me that I was getting very excited where urban design and architecture and planning would come closer to architecture. And so transportation projects are just great for that. They really need. I mean, if you take a station, I used to say, if you take a station, you peel off the roof. It's a piece of our public realm, right?
Right.
It should be felt as seamless, right? So the transition from the urban environment to the interior of a building, certain projects really need to have a team that really understand the need of this seamless procession of experiences. And so, as I say, my studies were, architecture and planning are all mixed up in the Italian way, and so I see value. I see value of that breaking the silos, right?
Right.
And so, kind of serendipitously, I connected with Multistudio, which you can tell by the name. Multistudio really, it's more than a name. It's more than a brand. It's really an ethos here of forget about the silos. I mean, be able, of course, to have the rigor and understanding of each disciplines, but don't let that get in the way of really looking at a project from all the angles and really providing solutions that are, beneficial in multiple scale from multiple users and from multiple points of view. So I just started. We'll see how it goes. It's a dynamic. It's a dynamic team, and so it's been quite fun so far.
So, how far along is the Sacramento station? Has it come out of the ground at all yet?
Well, not there yet. I think when I left, I should check back, but the client, which is one of my favorite clients in Sacramento, was solving the funding portion of the equation. So in a very strategic way, was trying to find the opportunity to phase the project and eventually start to advance. I left before that, but there should be movement quite soon.
Yeah. So right now, part of the high-speed rail is up and, well, not running yet, but part of it's built in Fresno. And
yes, exactly. So right now they're doing the Central Valley, right? It's
right.
kind of like the phase 1. So Sacramento would be, in the later phases, but I mean, the station is already there, so it's really future-proofing. Then once high-speed rail gets there, whatever is built or gets built is compatible with the new services, and so that's what we did. So really nothing stopped to start already working on the project as conceived, except the funding, of course.
Right. Oh, funding. Okay, the fun of funding. Well, but at our end of the equation, just recently, the electrification of Caltrans has happened, and that's very exciting to me. I mean, the new trains and the quieter electric, it all looks very fantastic. So hopefully at some
Absolutely.
point, those two will merge, maybe what 10, 15 years from now, whatever it takes, and we'll have high-speed rail.
Absolutely. I know this has been a long time coming, but I think most of the people are not aware of how much progress actually is happening. It's a slow-moving train, but it's happening, and it's tremendous. I mean, you mentioned electrification, but also there has been recent funding awarded for the extension of the tracks to eventually go to the box, to Salesforce Tower, right? And the box underneath, so to the terminal,
right.
as the bigger vision. So that study is going to start, and the work is going to start soon. So things are happening, and I think we see from the Biden administration in terms of the funding for bit better. It's I think it's remarkable that finally we're talking about urbanity and transportation as one thing. When we talk about transportation infrastructure, specifically transit infrastructure, the take is really to understand not only how to move people, but how this investment can really impact in a positive manner the community that quite often carry the burden of this infrastructure as they physically land some time on communities. And in the past, we've seen cutting through communities,
Right.
creating social and economic damage that we need to repair. But also, as we see increased access, how do we think of this holistically? To one end, of course, capitalizing on the investment, but on the other hand, making sure that this infrastructure really serve folks that will see their opportunity broaden in terms of providing more affordable access to opportunity. And so equity, it's front and center together with sustainability when we talk about this infrastructure. And I really, really like that. And I think right now, for folks like me that work in the urban design and transportation, cannot be a more exciting time.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wow. You're making me want to get involved in this whole situation, because I thought it was sort of a sleeping at this point, but it sounds like there is a great deal of activity. So
it is.
I think
it's a big giant that is slowly but surely is moving.
That's fantastic. I was under the impression that it may not ever move forward, but now that I see Caltrain's electrification and the conversation you have with what's going on both in San Jose and elsewhere, even in Texas, right? So
yeah. Well, I have to say this was with my previous company.
Right.
But now with Multistudio, the mission is to continuing on that. We're definitely breaking new ground here with this team. So it's an exciting new chapter. So we'll see.
Well, I think I want to have a conversation with you once a quarter just to get updated on what's going on in the whole transportation world. That would be fantastic. So how would people get a hold of you, Luca, if they want to find you?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn, of course, but also just shoot an email. If you can spell it, I'm just going to pronounce it once. Luca.Giaramidaro @multi.studio. And that's it. There's no comma at the end.
And yeah, piece of cake. So Giaramidaro is actually starts with a GIA. So off you go from there. But people can will find you, I'm sure. So great to speak with you. I want to kind of speak with you again in 3 to 4 or 5 months and just kind of get updated on what's happening in the whole transit world. This is fantastic. So I look forward to doing that.
Likewise. Thank you, Bruce.
That's a wrap on today's journey through the SF commercial real estate scene. Ready to share your story? Visit sfcommercialconversations.com/guest. Your insights could lead the next conversation.